Jeff Howard here at Kiteboarding.com. I know it's been a while. We're trying to get together and put some more videos up. Now, today I want to talk about the setup of a board, a setup of a twin tip. Now, a lot of people, I'll show up at the park and I'll watch them ride. They'll get off the water and they'll tell me what they're trying to do, and then I'll notice on their board that their setup is not correct for the way they like to ride, or the way that they want to ride, or their weight. Now, I want to show you what a lot of people will do. They'll come into the shop, they'll take a board, and they'll go, wow, how much flex does this board have? And they'll set the tip down, they'll hang on to this other tip, and they'll push in the center of the board. Now, the truth is, that is not how the board wants to flex while you're riding it. Now, what I want to explain to you is your foot position here or here, depending on where this is, depends on how this board is actually going to flex. So you have two positions. If you're loading the tip and you push on both of these, you can imagine the flex pattern is completely different than what you feel. The reason is most of these board manufacturers are setting up a flex pattern internally that you don't see. So you can see that this is tapered. It's thinner at the tips here, it's thicker at the center. But as well as internally, what you cannot see is they may be laying up glass or carbon from here to here and then having less on these tips. For instance, when you come to a Crazy Fly board, and I know a lot about these boards just because we work with them, is that internally here is a V flex pattern. So in other words, you will have layup of glass and carbon coming up into an A deal here, we call it the V. What that allows is when you actually load on one of these tips, this tip will flex off more than the whole tip will flex, meaning that'll give you a good turn. When you lean into a turn, you put load back on that tip, this tip will flex. Now, if you load up the whole tip, that will load up a lot more on here when you actually load it to jump and you push the whole tip in to give you that pop. So that's a little bit about flex. Now, what I'm trying to explain to you is when you do setups, a lot of people will not adjust anything. The shop will set it up, they'll go out and ride, and they'll think, that's it. Well, to give you the truth, what you want to do is set this stance width due to your height or due to what you want to do on that board. You will notice, here's a freestyle, one of the Pro Tour type boards. Look at the stance width on that. This is the widest stance width you'll get, and now let me tell you, this will put stress on your knees. But why they like to do this is stability. If someone's to push you over, the closer your feet are, the more wobbly you will be. The wider your stance, the more stable you are. You'll see it in snowboarding, and you'll also see it in wakeboarding, and you'll see it in kiteboarding. Now, this stance width is very, very hard. You can imagine what the flex pattern is on this board. With that wide of a stance, this thing will ride like a rock. But they like to load very, very strong while they're holding a ton of power, and you do not want that board to flex in the center. So what actually happens is when you're designing a board is you have a nice rocker line here. This is called the rocker. This is called the side cut. So a lot of people will ask those questions when I'm explaining it over the phone. So remember, the rocker will and the side cut kind of work together. You want enough rocker in the center area that the board begins to skip. If the board flexes too much, let's just say you're 250 to 300 pound and you're on a full glass board, you will make this board, when you're loading it, if you're that heavy, you can actually load this board so much that the rocker gets too much while you're holding a ton of load and you're actually pushing the water, you're not skipping on the water. It's a huge, huge effect that people really don't understand until I go, whoa, try this one. You need a carbon board with your weight. It won't flex under that load. Now the board will begin skipping. When the board skips, you get your speed and you can be very aggressive with it. So you may feel that, a power on, power off situation when you start railing over. That means that that board is flexing too much under your weight load. Now, how do you change that? You change it with your stance width. A lot of people, there are 3 settings, could be more settings depending on the board maker or manufacturer, but as you move these boards out, if you move these straps out, and it doesn't take much, you will change that flex pattern. It will stop flexing like this and begins loading that board evenly, and it won't flex in between your feet. And this is the most important skipping area across that board to keep that rocker. So stance width is very, very important. How you like to comfortably ride. Me, I ride about middle. I go 15 and a half to 16. That's the inside to inside bolt. So if you take a tape measure across here, that's where you are. I'm about 6 to 6'1". I like a good average flex to it. So if the board is riding really hard on you, bring your feet in a little bit. That will cause the board to flex in the pattern it wants. It'll make it easier and smooth ride. If you go wider, it'll start riding really hard, as well as it'll be very hard to carve a turn as you get your stance width out. Bring that stance width in. Play with it. Don't be afraid to mess around with that. Also, angle of your straps and pads. This is a comfort deal. Locking in your foot, and how you like to have that enjoyment, how tight it is on your foot. The standard width between a strap is 6 to 6.5. Usually around 6 1/4. So all of these things can have an effect on your ride. The side cut of a board makes how comfortable it'll ride through the water with chop, how easy it is to carve. A little bit more side cut to a point will make that board carve nice and smooth and allow that water to come around these tips. Rocker, you get too much rocker, you got to hold a lot of power to keep that board skipping. A little bit flatter rocker is really nice. It'll get to that point of keeping that board contact, or the water contacted on the board, and give you that lift you need. And as well as getting tip flex. Tip flex is going to cause a turn. It's kind of be like a power steering and turning. You get too wide of a tip, it's hard to turn. So don't be afraid to play around with these things. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. We love to have everything set up correctly because you'll enjoy your ride a lot more. Anyway, that's Jeff Howard here at Kiteboarding.com to educate you more, keep you on the water, and having a great time.